Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I see that we are already at 70 participants and growing, so just going to wait a couple more minutes for more people to join. Fantastic. We're almost at 150 participants. That's really great to see. So I think I will start the webinar now. Just want to say hello to everyone and welcome to today's webinar, which is titled Establishing and Implementing a Sustainable National Forest Monitoring System. So thank you all very much for joining us. As you know, today's webinar is part of the live online course, Forests and Transparency under the Paris Agreement, which you've all been participating in for the past couple of weeks. This webinar is part of the closure module, and it's the first of 2 webinars. So well done everyone for making it this far. It's really great to see you, and we're really excited today to be able to interact with you further. And we're going to be talking about national forest monitoring systems, the process to establish one, and the effects and uses that this can have for a country. Today's session will be in English with simultaneous translation into French and Spanish, and you can switch to the French and Spanish channel using the button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that looks like a globe or a planet, and it says interpretation underneath. Si quieren escuchar este webinario en español, en la parte inferior de la ventana de Zoom hay una opción de un canal para seguir el webinario de forma simultánea en español. And in French, si vous voulez écouter ce webinaire en français, en bas de la fenêtre Zoom, il y a une option de canal pour suivre le webinaire simultanément en français. Thank you. We will have 3 presentations today, followed by a 25-minute question and answer session where we want to hear from you. And in total, the session will last for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So another quick word on the format of this Zoom. You will notice that the microphones are muted to minimize audio problems. Since we have so many people with us today, 163 already. However, the whole point of the session is about interacting with you. We really want to give you the opportunity to ask questions to the experts whose work you've been learning about the past few weeks. So please take the opportunity and don't hesitate to pose any question you have in the question and answer box to each of our speakers as you listen to their presentations. And if someone has already posed a question that interests you, you can also give it a virtual thumbs up right in the question and answer box. Just to say, you will notice that there is a question and answer box as well as a chat. And I see a lot of you are already very active in the chat. That's great. Today, I have with me my colleagues, Anatoly and Alexandra, and they will be helping me to select the most appropriate questions for our speakers. And in order to make that easier for us to find and respond to those questions, we do ask you to please keep them in the question and answer box, and instead to reserve the chat box for if you have any technical problems or general comments or just want to say hi. So yeah, and for the questions in the question and answer box, if you write the name of who you want to address the question to, that will also help us. Finally, to say, the webinar will be recorded. It is being recorded, and we will be sharing the recording with you afterwards on the platform. Let me just briefly introduce myself. You might know me already from the course that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks. I'm Emily Donegan, and I work for the National Forest Monitoring Team at the Food and Agriculture Organization, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. So now that you know who I am, I see some of you have already done it already, but yeah, introduce yourself in the chat box. It'll be great to see who's with us. And without further ado, I'd also like to introduce you now to our first speaker, David Morales. David is a forestry officer at FAO. He is an expert of national forest monitoring, being the lead author of the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring, which you've been studying during this course. He has over 30 years of experience in forest monitoring, and thanks for being with us here today. David, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning and good afternoon, even good evening, depending where you are. I am glad to be here today with you. In this presentation, I will talk about voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. I hope my talk will complement the information you had learned during the online module. Next. Okay, to talk about the guidance, First, let's talk about the role of a national forest monitoring system. Normally, a national forest monitoring system is related with data and information on forest resources of a country, where this information is used by policy and decision makers. More recently, it is taking more relevance in the context of international and national reporting. For example, the FAO Global Forest Assessment, the UNFCCC, CBD, Sustainable Development Goals, among others. However, a national forest monitoring system is more than that. Some other uses that I can mention can be, for example, we can have impact assessment of natural hazards, for example, in case of hurricanes, earthquakes, landslides, droughts, etc. We can have sustainable development planning, for example, in cases where we want to, build infrastructure, in case of land use management, watershed management, among others. For example, as well, in terms of wildfires, pests and disease monitor and control, and taxation that sometimes people don't want to talk about, but of course, for good or bad, the information provided can be used as well for taxes purpose and other issues. And of course, among others uses. Another tricky question that for a national forest monitoring system is what is required and expected at national and international level. Normally, people think that when we promote national forest monitoring, we should focus on reliable and transparent data and information. Next, Rocio. And next. Okay. Of course, at the end, it is what is expected. However, in order to be able to have this, we should expect from a national forest monitoring system to have in place. It's quite important to have the country ownership. Country needs to be able to deal with all the process and not depend for external parties to carry out all of the audit. Legal and policy framework. For sure, it is really important. We need to have well-defined what we want to have and how it can be implemented. Something important that is currently getting more and more important is to have a landscape view. Today it's almost impossible to talk about forests without taking consideration a landscape view with a multiple purpose approach. There are too many interrelations among forests and other land uses. We cannot assess forests without assess them. Today, topics such as trees outside the forest, trees in urban areas, forest fragmentation, agroforestry system, landscape restoration, etc., are taking more relevance, and we need to take them in consideration. As well, in order to be sustainable in the long term, it needs to be institutionalized and have the human and financial resources available to be implemented. Forest monitoring have to have a flexible approach because it is an evolving process. I need to have a clear collaboration with research, infrastructure, and capacity building. The national forest monitoring as well need to be inclusive with participatory discussion process and have collaboration and exchange at international level as well. Have to be integrated and consistent with other sources of information and be flexible, including cost efficient. Have a well-defined data and information sharing policy and promote the credibility through transparency and quality. As you can see, these are the 14 principles promoted in the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring of FAO. Those principles were highly discussed during different expert consultations during the FAO forestry commissions, and the aim of those principles is to ensure to have reliable and transparent data and information in a sustainable way. Those principles are the basis for the different elements that and best practices suggested in the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. Next, Rocio. I can say that FAO has a long history related with forest monitoring. For example, in 1971, there was a milestone in this field with the publication of the book of Bernard Hosky, Planning a Forest Inventory. And since then, there have been several additional contributions that have provided complementarities and updates to this publication. In 2017, we can as well mention that there was a second milestone in national forest monitoring with the publication of the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. With this document, FAO provides the guidance to set up and implement the national forest monitoring system. Next. The voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring system were requested by members country in September 2012 and endorsed by COFO in 2016. It is free available in 6 different languages. Next. The aim of the voluntary guidance is to assist member countries setting up and implementing a national forest monitoring system. The guidance aims to be technical reference for governance bodies in charge of forest monitoring, educational and research institutions, the public and private sector, member of civil society concerned with forests. Next. In the guidance, a national forest monitoring system is defined as a system that comprises the people, institutions, and the resources that implement national forest monitoring at the country level in collaboration with other stakeholders, led by the governing body responsible for its conceptualization, planning, and execution, within a clear and well-defined mandate based on the principles and elements introduced in the voluntary guidance on national forest monitoring. Next. The guidance introduced the 14 principles described before. Sometimes people ask me why 14, why 10 or 7 or more. Well, as I mentioned before, we have a long discussion. It took 2 years and a lot of technical experts consultation with the academia, coordinators and national forest inventories, coordination of national forest inventories in different countries and latitudes, politicians, etc. And at the end, we became with those 14 principles that we have grouped in 5 different categories. We call it categories: governance, scope, design, data, and overall. Each principle is related with different specific elements proposed, and they are the basis for the definition of the guidance. Without having well-defined the principle, it was not possible to define the technical guidance for the good or the good practices. Next. The principles provide us the framework of the guidance, as I already mentioned. The element that contains the different guidance are grouped in 3 different pillars, as is shown in this picture, that are interrelated but do not have a hierarchical order. The 3 groups of elements are the foundation elements that provide us the strategical and the political guidance. Here we can find good practices of institutionalization, developing national capacity and partnerships, strengthening research and research institutions. Second group is the strategic elements that refer to management and organization of a national forest monitoring. Here we include the definition of the mandate, identification of information needs, stakeholder engagement, communication and dissemination, data management and archiving, impact assessment. And the third pillar is the operational elements that include the guidance for the preparation of data collection and management, the statistical and operational design, data management, analysis, documentation, and reporting. As you can see in the figure, a national forest monitoring system is quite complex and is not only dealing with data collection and analysis. This guidance summarizes good practices compiled for experts in different specialties, such legal, IT, forests and land use, business administration, journalists, remote sensing, sociologists, gender, among others. And the long history of FAO and long history and experience of FAO and other partners that support member countries on this field. This is why the guidance are an excellent reference to setting up and implement a national forest monitoring system. Next. The guidance are compilation of good practices and provide the user with some suggestions and advice. They are not compulsory, and each country is free to use it or not. With the guidance, we try to identify as an hypothetical national forest monitoring system that has been based in successful stories and lessons learned. The guidance do not provide deeper information in technical issues. In most of the cases, there are additional available publications that can provide more deeper details. The guidance provides advice in some important points to be considered. For example, if you are collecting data, you must have in place a repository infrastructure. If you want to set up a national forest monitoring system, you must have a clear mandate. Some of them seem to be simple and basic. However, not to take them in consideration can affect the well development and implementation of a national forest monitoring system. Each element, as in the example in this slide, for example, the element 4 is 4.1, the mandate, have a number for its identification. You can see it here exactly. A short description of the element, and then the guidance or good practices for each element. Again, the guidance are good practices that were defined during the different expert consultation and based on FAO lessons learned. Next. The use of the guidance is easy and user-friendly. However, it can take time and will require a multidisciplinary team to evaluate them. To facilitate the application and evaluation of this voluntary guidance in each country, FAO has developed the National Forest Monitoring System assessment tool. I don't want to go into details on it because it will be the topic for the next talk, but I just want to finalize my interventions saying that the guidance are there and have been used by several countries already. Use them, they are user-friendly and free of charge. This is really important. We had compiled it to facilitate the work of member countries on National Forest Monitoring System implementation, and we hope countries can use them. Thank you all for your attention. Now we move to the next presentation. Emily.
Thank you so much, David. Really nice to hear a little bit about the background of national forest monitoring, and I hope it was useful for the participants who are here and who learned about that in Module 2, particularly of the e-learning course. Everyone, remember, start putting any questions you have for David or any of our speakers into the question and answer box, and it will help us if you write the name if you want to address your question to at the start of your question. I see that quite a few of you have already started doing that, and that's really great to see. And as David just mentioned, we have a presentation now from Carla Ramirez. Carla is an expert of national forest monitoring and inventory with the Forestry Division of FAO, and with 20 years experience supporting Latin American and Caribbean countries on planning, designing, and implementing national forest monitoring systems. She's also the lead editor of the book, National Forest Inventories Towards the Harmonization of Forest Information, which will be launched in December in English and Spanish, where the experience of 21 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean network in implementing national forest inventories will be shared. Carla, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Hello, everyone. I hope you are having a great time. And thank you very much for participating in our webinar today. and for your engagement in this massive open online course on forest and transparency. I was following the discussion in the forums, and I have learned a lot about the National Forest Monitoring Systems on your countries. Today, I'm going to show you how to quick and easily assess the potential gaps, weaknesses, and strengths that may exist in a country using the assessment tool. So next one, please. Let me introduce you the National Forest Monitoring System Assessment Tool. This tool was developed by FAO under the GEF-funded CBIT Forest project. It consists of an Excel file and it is freely available on the internet. You can download it directly from the lesson 2 of the FAO learning course, the FAO Red Plus website, or the website of the CBIT Forest project. The tool is accompanied by a guidance document that explains how to use the tool and describes the methodology. Both the Excel file and its guidance are available in English, Spanish, and French. Next one, please. As David mentioned in his presentation, the tool is based on the voluntary guidelines of National Forest Monitoring System in combination with resources and material from the Red Compass of the Global Forest Observation Initiative, and incorporating the experiences and lessons learned by FAO members, countries, projects, and initiatives. The next one, please. The tool was developed with the aim of helping countries in identifying the needs, gaps, and weaknesses that are associated with the design and implementation of the existing National Forest Monitoring System. It also allows users to track the progress made on the establishment and implementation of the NFMS. It can provide guidance on the development of the NFMS implementation work plan, where areas of improvements can be identified and documented in collaboration with the stakeholders and partners. In addition, it allows periodical update of the system because new needs of information appear or there are new priorities in the institution due to the previous goals were achieved or because the technology was changed. And finally, we hope that by using the tool, it will help you to get a better understanding of the voluntary guidelines of National Forest Monitoring and successfully apply those guidelines in practice. The next one, please. The tool aims to help countries assessing the capacity and status of their National Forest Monitoring systems. And this assessment takes place across 3 complementary themes, namely institutional arrangements, measurement and estimation, and reporting and verification. This organization of the elements is in the tool allow us to facilitate the harmonization and the relationship between the voluntary guidelines with the Global Forest Observation Initiative materials and resources, which are linked to the MRV framework and the ETF process too. Also, I would like to remark that the institutional arrangements are essential for effectively measuring, estimating, reporting, and verification of forest-related data. And information it is a strong and robust institutional arrangement are on the basis of the MRV system. The next one, please. How is the assessment conducted in this tool? So here we use a rating scale from 0 to 3, where users are able to select from drop-down list and evaluate the guidelines listed in the tool based on country-specific information, experience, and knowledge. So for example, if a guideline is evaluated as 0, that shows that no action has been taken in the country to implement this guideline, on this activity deserves priority. If a guideline is evaluated as 1 or 2, it shows that there is awareness in a country to implement the guideline. However, further technical support is required. The next one, please. Who are the potential users of this tool? It can be used by anyone who is involved in the National Forest Monitoring. And more specifically, can be used by government bodies responsible for forest monitoring, educational and research institutions, the public and private sector, and members of the civil society and other relevant stakeholders and partners. The next one. At present, the tool has been tested in 6 pilot countries across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and the Caribbean, but also other countries, as for example, Mexico and Liberia, are using it, and we're all very happy that we have here today Rafael Monge from Costa Rica for presenting and sharing with us the results obtained from their assessment. All countries that did this exercise and evaluated their national forest monitoring system followed a participatory approach to validate the result of their assessment involving key stakeholders. The main output of this task is the development of a roadmap of actions to address the gaps and strengthen the national forest monitoring system. The next one, please. The use of the tool also is recommended for incorporating new needs of information of NFMS, as mentioned in the new publication of FAO, Integrating Forest and Landscape Restoration into National Forest Monitoring Systems. If you are interested in this publication, it is available in English and Spanish. The link is provided in this presentation, and we are going to copy it in the chat. Finally, the next one, please. I would like to encourage all of you who are keen to learn more about the use of the tool to read the information note, which is available online. Download the tool, promote and use it to assess the National Forest Monitoring System capacity of your own countries. Also, I would like to thank my colleagues who worked on the development of the tool. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks so much, Carla. And participants, feel free to access the tool if you haven't already. I think we will put the link to it in the chat now and use it to assess your countries or another country that you're interested in, National Forest Monitoring System, or even just to help frame your thinking about National Forest Monitoring Systems in general. It's quite useful. We're also keen to receive feedback from users, so take a look and then let us know what you think. I would now like to do a quick poll with 4 questions, which should appear on your screens. I hope they appear okay. And as we go, we'll take a look at the results. So first question is, has your country established a National Forest Monitoring System? So participants, yeah, I see people have started voting. That's great. Just vote on whether the answer is yes, no, don't know. The second question is, what is the main purpose of the data produced by the National Forest Monitoring System in your country? Is it maybe forest policies and programs, international research, national reporting, or international reporting, other objectives, or perhaps all of the above? Or maybe you just don't know. I see a lot of you are voting. That's great. Yeah. Question number 3 is, what are the main challenges of national forest monitoring systems that have been or are being faced by the system in your country? Is it perhaps quality of data, lack of institutional capacity, lack of financial resources? Perhaps there's technical challenges you're facing. Perhaps it's all of the above, or perhaps you don't know. And finally, question 4 is, what are the most critical areas of your country's national forest monitoring system, according to the following categories of the National Forest Monitoring System assessment tool that Carla just spoke about. Those categories are institutional arrangements, measuring and estimation, reporting and verification, or again, perhaps don't know. I'm just looking at our response rate. So we're 35% response rate. So please, anyone who hasn't voted yet, get voting. Great. I see that response rate is rising to 50% now. Just we'll wait a couple more seconds for everybody to have their say. Patterns are emerging already, which we will take a little look at once we get the results. Maybe I do a little 10-second countdown to get us up to nearly 100% response rate would be very nice. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, we're at 70%, so I think that's pretty good. I think we can share the results now of the poll. Thank you to all of those of you who did respond. That's great. Now we get to see the results. So to the first question, has your country established a national forest monitoring system? It's really encouraging to see that 39% of you said yes, and 18% of you said yes, but there's still challenges being faced. 8% said no, 14% said not yet, and 21% said they don't know. So that's quite interesting that the majority have already established a national forest monitoring system. That's great. Question number 2 was about the purpose of your national forest monitoring system. And there's 2 answers which have both had 29% response rate, and that is that they're being used for forest policies and programs. And the second one is all of the above. So all of the above includes forest policy and programs, international research, national reporting and international reporting. And that's quite interesting because it relates back to David's presentation about the multi-purpose nature of national forest monitoring systems. Then we look at the results from question 3, which is about the main challenges of that are faced in the implementation of a national forest monitoring system. And we see quite an even spread between all the challenges, I would say. All of the above is coming out top, but we have roughly equal split. About a quarter of respondents said that data quality was a challenge. Another quarter said lack of institutional capacity, and yet another quarter said the lack of financial resources. Lack of financial resources is the largest of those 3 that I've just mentioned. Technical challenges, also a significant 21%. And that's interesting because we see that finance is an issue, but so that there's a general evenly spread between all these different types of issues that are being faced by national forest monitoring systems. That's quite interesting. And finally, question 4 is, what do you think the most critical area of your country's national forest monitoring system is, according to these different categories? And measurement and estimation is coming out top there, but again, it's quite evenly spread with institutional arrangements and reporting and verification, both posing challenges. So I think I can stop sharing that there. That's really interesting. Thank you all very much for engaging in that poll. And yeah, if you have any comments on those results, please write them in the chat once again. That would be great to hear what your thoughts are on that. So now we have our last presentation. We're going to hear from someone who has hands-on experience of setting up and operating a national forest monitoring system. We hear from Rafael Monge Vargas. He is director of the National Geoenvironmental Information Center of Costa Rica. and he's working on the National Forest Monitoring System of Costa Rica, which is called CIMOCUTE. Rafael, great to have you here with us once again today. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. I hope you can hear me well. I'm going to start sharing my screen, just to see if everything's working. Is it there?
Yeah, perfect. I see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Hola a todos, bonjour à tous. Thank you for the invitation to participate in the third edition of the Forest and Transparency under the Paris Agreement Massive Open Online course. As Emily said, my name is Rafael Monge. I work as Director of the National Center of Geoenvironmental Information, we call it CENIGA, the Ministry of Environment and Energy of Costa Rica. First, before I start, I want to thank FAO for all of the support given to Costa Rica in the development of our National Forest Monitoring System. And this support has been crucial, and it's always very nice to work together. And with this opportunity to also with you reach out to colleagues from the entire world. Also, thanks for developing the guidance. These have added value to the different forest monitoring systems around the world, and of course in Costa Rica is not the exception. And well, I only have a limited amount of time, but if you want to continue conversation, we can of course take your questions in this webinar, or you can write me on my social networks using the handle Rafael Monge CR. Well, this is a very special year for us in Costa Rica, because we're celebrating 200 years of independence, also along with other countries in Central America like Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. Of course, we would have preferred to celebrate it without a global pandemic, but it has made us feel very proud. The world has changed a lot in these last 200 years. The way that people live and how the society and the economy was organized were very different too. Climate change didn't used to be a problem back in that time. In Costa Rica, we have grown as a country, and we have achieved to make sustainable development part of our DNA. Costa Rica has built a world-renowned green country brand focused on conservation, reforestation, and our system of national parks and protected wildlife areas. This has been an important driver of economic growth and well-being for Costa Ricans. Thanks to our natural resources and our visionary policies, we gain independence from fossil fuels to produce the electricity that we consume. Currently, 60% of our territory is covered by forests, and since 2013, the land use sector came to be considered a carbon sink in the accounting of our greenhouse gas emissions, absorbing up to almost 5 million tons of CO2 in 2024. However, we also face significant challenges related to sustainability. Deforestation in Costa Rica amounts to 17,000 hectares per year and occurs in a dispersed manner in relatively small territories, making its precise estimation a challenge. In addition, it is feared that this statistic may have increased due to the effects of the pandemic and the need for resources, especially in rural areas. To face this challenge, like many countries, Costa Rica has traditionally monitored and managed its forest, biodiversity, and agricultural lands separately. However, their strong interdependence has made necessary to develop a more comprehensive form of monitoring. Recognizing the need to harmonize land and resource management, Costa Rica developed the National Land Use, Land Cover, and Ecosystems Monitoring System that we call CIMOCUTE. CIMOCUTE is a comprehensive national scale monitoring system that produces consistent information on current extent and changes in forest, in forested agriculture and other land uses, land covers, and ecosystems. Several subsystems harmoniously integrate field and remote sense data to produce information that will inform decision-making and support the development and implementation of sound land management policies. The data also support a variety of national and international initiatives, such as the National REDD+ strategy, REDD as reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. I'm sure you are all aware of that. The National Decarbonization Plan, and the National Climate Adaptation Policy. This is an integrated system of systems founded on three interrelated processes. The classification that responds to the question of what, mapping related to the question of where, and inventory and related registries that tells us the how much. The classification process provides common land use, land cover, and ecosystem classification systems that are used by all subsystems of the inventory and mapping processes. These subsystems interrelate synergistically to increase the value of data. This is pretty much related to what Carla was explaining in the identification of information needs, preparation and operational designs, and data management, and data analysis and documentation. This is what we're trying to conceptualize in this slide, but of course, in practice, this is a lot behind all of this information and conceptualization. But well, of course, the key subsystems in Simo-Kuti include one sample-based area estimation to monitor changes in the areas of the country's land uses, land covers through visual interpretation of these attributes from high-resolution imagery using a systematic grid of plots. The second one is a field-based national forest and other lands inventory to monitor forest and other attributes that are only measurable in the field. And the third one is the mapping to depict the spatial distribution of the different land uses, land covers, and ecosystems. And also related to the guidance and the tool, this has pretty much to do with the design for field data collection and remote sensing that was explained also in the other presentations. Well, in Costa Rica, we established an executive decree to formalize Simo-Kuti. I mean formalize because we started with Simo-Kuti since 2015, and there we started the design. It wasn't even called Simo-Kuti back in that time, and we have been working together with the different stakeholders in the institutions that integrate this monitoring system, and we were successful to have this decree signed on this year, in 2021, with the signature from the Minister of Environment, the Minister of Agriculture, and the Minister of Justice. Why these ministries? Because they integrate the most important sectors that are part of our institutionality in related to this our monitoring system, and they are all represented in an executive committee with representation from the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Environment, and our National Institute of Geography. However, we want to make an improvement as soon as we can to include our colleagues from the housing sector who are in charge of the land management or urban areas management in Costa Rica. They are included in the technical parts of the system that I'm going to share next. However, we feel that we focus on the agriculture and on the integration of agriculture and environment, who has been not an easy task, but we were successful with this, and we now are ready to move forward with included this other, with integrating this other sector in the governance of Simukute, because as I'm telling you, they are included in the technical working spaces that we have. Well, Simukute, besides this executive committee, has a coordinating unit that is represented by CENIGA, the office that I coordinate in the Ministry of Environment. And we have these technical work groups or working tables where I'm going to show next. These working tables, well, Simukute has been constructed in a highly participatory fashion that includes stakeholders from more than 40 government, academic, international, and other institutions, primarily representing the environmental and agricultural sectors. The work of the various institutions is coordinated to the thematic technical work groups, which focus on specific subsystems or other elements of Simukute and have an advisory role. The main functions of these groups are to develop, review, and adjust methodologies, indicators, protocols, standards, and other tools to monitor the landscape while ensuring continuous improvement. The activities of these technical work groups are coordinated by CENIGA, the National Center of Geoenvironmental Information, as the coordinated unit of the process. We have these technical work groups, the sample-based area estimation, the land use land cover classification system, or national forest inventory, the agricultural lands working group, the ecosystems, and the mapping working groups. And well, we used to have a very busy agenda with the meetings of these working tables, organizing technical discussions, and developing capacity building initiatives. And of course, this is all back before 2020, because after that we had to adjust and make changes to this regarding the circumstances. And everything now is organized virtually. You can see our events now are or virtual, but this hasn't stopped us. As you can see, well, the decree was signed this year in the middle of the pandemic, and now we're still moving forward with the virtuality. However, things are getting a little bit more presential every now and then. Anyway, one important challenge that also the pandemic has brought is related to finance. Well, this is a news picture from, of course, it's in Spanish, but I'm going to explain to you that this is saying that due to the low recaudation from the government is not getting enough funding as we used to have before the pandemic, and this is getting this is being lowering the budget that we have for institutions that are in charge of taking care of our forests or of environmental payment and services program in our country. This is a very worrying circumstances that we're facing right now, with a lot of social and economic challenges. Of course, the forest sector is also being affected. However, thanks to our monitoring system and to our work with different international institutions, we have been able to obtain finance from, for example, results-based finance, for example, from the Global Climate Fund, the Green Climate Fund that is supporting Costa Rica, based on the performance that we have been able to measure and show to the world in relation to our forest sector, or the AFOLU sector, to be more specific. And this is not only the only project that we have. We also have another project with the World Bank, which we have achieved an emissions reduction payment agreement that is also supporting us at this time, and it has come in a good time. Of course, we would like to be in better circumstances, but we need to see how we face all these kind of challenges. And this is a specific example of how our system is helping us maintain the sustainability of the work that we have been doing. And another very important way to continue our work and obtain resources is by building partnerships. And in this slide, I want to share some examples of all the partners and different projects that we are developing currently in the framework of our monitoring system. And of course, FAO is one very important stakeholder and partner ally, Costa Rica, since the very beginning, since day one of Simocute. And they have been help us to go wider. Now we're very busy with the group on Earth observations, the GEO, and have different projects with them and other stakeholders that like the modeling system for natural capital accounting in Costa Rica, that we're working with the natural capital project of Stanford University. And also we have another project with in the framework of GEO and Google Earth Engine that is trying to tackle deforestation and forest degradation using new sources, new mechanisms to estimate and measure forest degradation and deforestation using new, like for instance, radar data that it hasn't been used before to for our reports. And another example is this mapping essential lab support areas project that is using different sources of geospatial information that is being produced from different stakeholders to produce one map that can tell us where is more beneficial to protect, manage, and restore our territory in order to achieve our sustainability goals. And this is all, we're trying to put this all together in the report of the state of the environment of Costa Rica that can reach out to different stakeholders and decision makers. Because sometimes all this information stays in reports delivered to the different conventions or the different international stakeholders, but sometimes it doesn't get to the users or to the people interested in our country. And this is a way that we're trying to reach out to them as well and make them available the information. And this was also something that is recommended by the guidelines of FAO. One example of how we are doing, of course, the sharing information is related to our website, simocute.go.cr. I invite you to get in there anytime you want to see more information from how we are also doing reporting and verification of the work that we're doing, and the communication and diffusion of these steps, because this is an ongoing process. It never stops. We hope it gets stronger every day. And of course, you can also find the technical reports that we have delivered in the REP+ web platform. There you can find the latest information, data, analysis from forest reporting that has helped us achieve all these results that I have shared before. And soon we will have more to come. But of course, this is very important that we can translate all this work in monitoring information into actions that are helping shape up our territory. For instance, like increasing the agricultural productivity and sustainability, or adding value to our tourism industry, or improving land use management. We think we're successful not when we publish things, but when we see real transformation or real support to our local stakeholders from the work that we're doing with our monitoring system. And well, before I close, I really want to thank again to FAO for developing the tool, for developing the guidelines. Last year in November, we ran the assessment tool, and we have had these results. And I really think we should do a new one to see how we have improved so far. In that time, it helped us identify our gaps and define our priorities of our work. And well, as you saw, we got in this time a new decree and a lot of new things coming. So maybe we could be better evaluated this time, and we can also identify new opportunities of improvement using this tool. Well, thank you very much for your attention. As we say in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Thank you so much, Rafael, for giving us some insight into setting up and implementing a national forest monitoring system, and for talking a bit about the progress that you've made as well in the past year in particular. It's really interesting to hear, and I'm sure it was very interesting for all the participants to hear. And related to that, there are some new case studies on Costa Rica Guide, which maybe people would be interested in looking at, and I'll just copy those into the chat right now. Let me just copy and paste. There we go. Cool. Yeah, thanks so much again, Rafael, and to our other speakers as well, David, who's talking us through the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring, giving us an overview of monitoring generally. And then we heard from Carla about the assessment tool. And finally, Rafael, for showing us how it all applies in practice. That was great. And thank you to all of you so far for engaging in the polls and in the question and answer box, because now it's time for the question and answer session. So if you haven't already, please don't hesitate to put some of your questions in the question and answer box. I see it is already really active, which is great. We'll do our best to get around to them, and it will help us if you do put the name of who you want to address the question to, whether it's David, Rafael, or Carla, just at the start of your question. That would be great. So let me just take a look at the question and answer box. If I can, I would like to ask my first question to David. I see there is a question from Irshad about how many countries are using the guidance and what is their feedback? Is it consistent with the IPCC 2006 guidance? David, over to you.
Great, Emily. No, excellent question. Well, first, I will say that the voluntary guidance were based on the IPCC guidance. Then all have been included in the different recommendation best practices that we had included. From the beginning, from where we designed the guidance, it were included there. Then this is no doubt that you will be following as well the guidance. Of course, the guidance is, as I mentioned before, is not so specific. It gives you some lesson learned and some best practices. And then sometimes perhaps in more details, you need to come back to the IPCC guidance or the new document that we are preparing, that this is NFI modules that will be launched as well by the end of the year with more details, technical details. Regarding the question of how many countries are using the guidance is a little bit difficult to track, because before, for example, just one example, before we start to talk about the guidance, the topic of institutionalization was not even under discussion in any forum. When we talk about forest monitoring, we're always remote sensing, NFI data, but no one's care about the real structure of a national forest monitoring system. Then I think one of the greatest contributions that we have as FAO was to try to consolidate this kind of unit, this kind of specific technical support for the country, thinking not only in terms of data collection, but as well as the full overall process and even all the different relations with the different stakeholders that are in the countries. Then if you ask me, give me the number of how many countries are already using this, probably most of them are not branding the guidance as per se. But then we start to see that countries start to talk about that. We now see countries that have formulated different acts, different regulations and things for establish the national forest monitoring system. Even in other kind of guidance like the GFOI as well. Now it comes with the topic, and then it starts to be more and more comprehensive. It's difficult to track, but I think you can see currently that this has been impact around the world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, David. Yeah, there is another question for you, if I may. It is, so isn't forest monitoring among SDGs monitoring SDG 15? So the 10 principles, wouldn't they add more burden on countries for reporting? This is a question from Khadija.
Again, excellent question. You know, one of the first, we can say, steps or recommendation we do in the voluntary guidance is always to do what we call the information need assessment. You know, what we are aiming is that this process of the national forest monitoring system really provide information that the country needs for their own purpose and as well for the international reporting. Then if the country decide as their own, you know, that the information is collecting and we respond to this, this is not an additional burden for them because they already take this in consideration when they design the national monitoring system. Then it's not an additional thing. It will support them to get more information. And then as well, it's always good when you establish to have this activity that we call information assessment to really focus on the information you will need. That is my suggestion.
Thanks a lot, David. Yeah, there's another question as well to Carla this time. It is, Carla, would you be able to elaborate a little about the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring and the assessment tool, whether it considers the IPCC guidelines and inventory software that relates to the question that David just answered? That's from Kyo. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, of course, as David mentioned, the voluntary guidelines are linked to the IPCC guidelines. Also, in the tool assessment, we analyzed other sources of information or guidelines as the GFOI to complement and to consider better aspects, for instance, the linkage between the remote sensing and the ground-based data. And this is something very important for analyze and during the assessment tool, how to better link these two sources of information, because for answer to the results of the emission reduction, you will need to combine better this information to have to calculate the uncertainties in a better manner. So there are also many tools that, for instance, FAO have been developed in the Open Forest initiative, where you can see how this information or the different sources of information can be linked better and respond to the IPCC guidelines.
Thanks a lot, Carla. Yeah, that's great. One more question for Rafael here. It was from Juana, and it's about finance. So we've also received questions in the past, in past sessions of this webinar, Rafael. You might be in a good position to respond based on your experience of national forest monitoring system institutionalization. How is it that national forest monitoring systems are financed?
It's a tricky question because finance comes from different sources, and also the system is not like a centralized system with a centralized unit, but it's integrated from the work of the different institutions. So we need finance for the institutions to do their work and deliver their information products, and also finance to coordinate the system and have all these and follow this follow-up process and etc. So of course institutional or governmental finance is important, but that one is more focused on the institutions delivering their products, right? and we get a lot of support from international cooperation, and sometimes it's key international cooperations. Sometimes without international cooperation, Costa Rica will not be able to do a lot of the things that I have shown.
I think we may have briefly lost Raphael there, unfortunately, but basically the answer was as well that there's no one size fits all approach, as David has already responded in the question and answer box, but you can take examples from different countries, Costa Rica being one of them. Hopefully we get Raphael back in the next few minutes. While we wait for him, maybe I move to a question again for Carla, if that's okay. Carla, it was clear from your presentation how the tool is a useful guide for countries to self-assess and to frame thinking about what gaps a national forest monitoring system might have. And I can also see how the tool and its output could be useful for transparency under the Paris Agreement. Perhaps you could elaborate on that a little, and then we go back to Raphael if we have him back online.
Sorry, Emily, can you repeat the question, the first part?
Sure. Yes, so it was about how the tool is useful to frame thinking around the gaps, perhaps in the national forest monitoring system, and how that could also be useful for enhancing transparency under the Paris Agreement. Could you perhaps elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, of course. Well, the tool supports countries to identify those gaps, and many of them could be related on the institutional aspects. In my experience, I saw the answers from the pool related that many people said measuring are the most needs of development, but maybe the institutional arrangement could need more time, maybe, because you need to organize many institutions to develop different topics and to deliver results on the measuring point of view. So I think governments needs to work strongly on the institutional arrangement to have better solutions at the technical aspects. And if the information from is integrated by the institutions, it will be better for the reporting. In many cases, there are, for instance, differences on the definitions of the land use and forest definitions. And this is a key topic to improve in the countries, because if you have different operational definitions in each component of the National Forest Monitoring System, your statistics are going to be different, and it's less transparent, and also the robustness of the system is not enough, maybe. So it will be need a lot of discussion internally in terms of the terms, definitions, and the methods you are going to use and all of these methodology should be documented, very well documented and available as the convention, the UNFCCC convention asks for countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, the importance of documentation as well. Thanks for highlighting that. I think we have Raphael back. Sorry, I think we lost you for a couple of seconds there, Raphael. Maybe we can go back to the question that you were answering as we lost you, which was about how national forest monitoring systems are financed.
Thank you, Emily. Sorry for that. But as I was mentioning, there are different sources of finance, especially from government budget for the institutions that have specific mandates, and of course international cooperation and these result-based payments is all part of the strategy that Costa Rica is developing in order to be able to sustain our forest monitoring system.
Thanks a lot. And maybe another question to you. I'm just looking in the chat. There's a lot of questions for you. And maybe just to summarize them, some of them a little bit, they're asking about the challenges. So what have been the main challenges in the development of Simo Kute, and what is your advice to other countries experiencing them?
Thank you. That's an interesting question. And I have been thinking about what to say for that, because there's a lot of things I could mention. However, one very important thing that I want to tell you and to recommend is about the importance of the integration of the different sectors. Even though it's not easy, it's really easy to say it, but in practice, when you have different institutions that have specific stakeholders that have different interests, and I mean with this, the environmental sector and the agricultural sector, is not an easy task to agree with these institutions. I think that is a factor that has made that it took almost 6 years to sign the decree of Simo Kute, because we really wanted to have both sectors in that signature. Sometimes we got an advice that told us, why do you want the agricultural sector in Simo Kute? Just do it with the Ministry of Environment and you will have that really quick, right? We will have had the decree a lot of time before. However, this wasn't going to give us the strength that we wanted for Simo Kute, because the agricultural sector is the second biggest sector that we are monitoring in our country. First, the forest, like I told you, this is like 60% of the cover of our territory, and then we have agricultural lands. And that's why I was also telling you the importance of integrating the urban sector, because that's another cover that we want to monitor, and the interactions with these different sectors is what we want to monitor, measure, and the best way to do it is when we do it together, the different institutions that have the mandate for that. So I think that has been one of our main challenges, but I think we were successful with that. It only took us a little patience.
Perfect, thank you. One more question. There's a lot of interest in your presentation. And relating to the question I asked before to Carla was, so tomorrow our second webinar is with experts from the UNFCCC, and they will be speaking to us about enhancing transparency, about the enhanced transparency framework. Are there any changes envisioned for Simo Kute in the coming years as part of the process of continuous improvement, and in particular, perhaps relating to the enhanced transparency framework?
Yes, Simo Kute is always in a continuous improvement, and the country itself, actually, we envision some changes in our governance for Costa Rica. For example, our Climate Change Directorate is taking more leadership in the production of the greenhouse gas inventories. And this is something new that happened this year. And it's very important that we also start with we have an MRB climate change working table envisioned, but we haven't started that working table. That's something that we want to do as soon as possible, since all these changes that I'm mentioning to you. And this is also important to also inform to other colleagues that are part of the monitoring system. That's why we have the working tables. It's a very good, useful way to interact, get informed, and also influence the processes. And well, there's another how do you say this? Another initiative that our minister has in order to give more strength to to the ministry by creating a new secretariat of transitioning ecological and energetic transition. I'm not still sure about the name in English for this secretariat, but that is going to integrate my office in CENIGA, the planning office of the ministries, and the Directorate of Climate Change, because these are like small offices. With my office has only 3 people in the staff, but to create one more influential mechanism or organization within the ministry that can deliver better and be more integrated with the process of the UNFCCC and the development of the State of the Environment reports, and connected all the information for different purposes. I think those are important things that are coming in the future that are going to help us deliver better, not only information for our country, but also for the international stakeholders.
Thanks a lot, Rafael. Yeah, looking forward to the webinar tomorrow as well to hear more. Maybe we're running short of time, but maybe one more question for David, related as well to the question we just had to Rafael about challenges. So David, based on your many years of experience on forest monitoring internationally, and with the voluntary guidelines having been published 4 years ago, maybe almost 5, what would you say are the persistent major challenges to forest monitoring around the world?
Very interesting question, Emily. You know, I think when the people don't understand or don't know about something, really don't move to it. You know, for the people who take decisions in our country, you know, the people who is making the rules in the country. Sometimes when you talk about forestry information or forest information, they really don't have this conceptualization. What is this? And then if you come with the idea of a national forest monitoring system, what is this? You know, they don't have. And even in our sector, you know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, there were, you know, a lot of discussion what a national forest monitoring system was. You know, some people come with different ideas, different solutions, and it was not a real clear definition of what it is. Some people talk about remote sensing, some people talk about, you know, inventory, some different things. But at the end, I think what is more important is to understand this specific process that have to have in the country, you know, the process that the country, the governments really take advantage of that information for their own purpose. You know, reporting to international convention, et cetera, is super important as well, but they need to really have the use of the data for their own purpose, for their own planning, for their own, you know, preparation for the future. That is the most important. Then when they really realize that this is information valuable for them, they will invest as well resources as they do for other things. You know, sometimes we say, well, how much costs a national forest monitoring system? Sometimes some of the pieces of the national forest monitoring system are already in the specific country. You know, they have some remote sensing resources, et cetera, but they don't discuss, they don't work together, and then this cannot be consolidated. I think this is one of the challenges. How can we really come with this consolidation? How can we come with this idea that this is something useful for the countries? They can use this information for their own purpose and then for their own development. Once we solve this, I think the rest will be fine. You know, some people ask, for example, if the information will serve for the national determinant contributions to reporting on that of the SDGs. Yes, for sure, that will be. But first, you know, national information is essential for the countries in order to really invest resources in what they need. I think this is one of the major challenges, according with my point of view.
Thanks so much, David. Yeah, I think that's a good point to end on, the importance of ensuring sustainability of the procedures and the system itself is fundamental. I'd like to thank you and also Rafael and Carla as our presenters today, and also to thank the audience. You've been really active. I think you've been one of our most active audiences. That's fantastic. We've got over 70 questions, I think, in the question and answer box. That's amazing. We managed to pack a lot into the past hour and a half, and I hope it's helped cement some of the things that we've been covering in the past couple of weeks of the online course. The questions that are remaining unanswered in the question and answer box, we run out of time, but we will get around to answering those in a follow-up document. And hopefully we've managed to answer most of them. But with that, I would like to hand over to Julian Fox. He's the leader of the National Forest Monitoring Team here at FAO for some concluding remarks. Julian, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. So to summarize, today's webinar was about national forest monitoring systems on paper and in practice. We know that national forest monitoring systems are useful as they generate information for multiple needs related to forests. Those needs include, for example, the need to know about carbon, timber, biodiversity, or perhaps medicinal uses that people make use of from their forests, as well as international reporting on REDD+, to the UNFCCC, to the Convention on Biological Diversity, or to the Global Forest Resources Assessment. We know that a national forest monitoring system is fundamental for forest monitoring in a country, and we have guidance, the voluntary guidelines on national forest monitoring, developed through negotiation and consensus between many stakeholders from around the world. As mentioned by David today, a handy derivative of the voluntary guidelines is the NFMS assessment tool, which Carla presented, which enables quick and easy assessment of a national forest monitoring system using material from the voluntary guidelines, as well as REDD+ guidance. Rafael showed us how the tool was applied in Costa Rica and gave us a tour of Costa Rica's NFMS, highlighting successes, challenges, and next steps as food for thought when thinking about the NFMS of your country of interest. Thank you very much, Rafael. Tomorrow we'll have the second webinar of this MOOC, and it will focus on the importance of institutional arrangements for transparency, and more broadly will focus on climate action under the Paris Agreement. Tomorrow, 6th of June at 2:30 Central European Time in English with simultaneous translation into French and Spanish. The title will be Transitioning from the Measurement, Reporting and Verification Framework to the Enhanced Transparency Framework. And we're really looking forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow, also with our colleagues from the UNFCCC. Thank you very much, and wishing you all a great day, and so nice to be with you for the last hour and a half. Thank you.